Good afternoon, students. I welcome you all for today's GATE 2022 classes sponsored by AICTE under Prerna scheme. So, today's lecture based on the water and wastewater treatment, which is present by Dr. Kiran Tajne ma'am. Welcome you, ma'am. Students, please pay attention. I request you, Tajne ma'am, you can start with your lecture.
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. Is this PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am, your PPT is visible.
Okay. So there is some problem in my laptop, so I cannot uh, make this a slide as a slideshow. Okay, so we'll keep this as it is. Is this readable? Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
read this? Okay, okay, no issue. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Kiran Tajne, Associate Professor and Head of Department of Civil Engineering, Government College of Engineering. So today I'll be dealing with the water and wastewater treatment. Out of this, my topic is this water and wastewater treatment, but the time duration is very small. Only 1 hour, 1 hour is allotted to me. So in this, we can complete in short the water treatment process. So wastewater will not be covered in today's lecture. Okay, just a minute. So these are contents of my presentation. Basics of water quality standards, physical, chemical and biological characteristics of water, water quality index, then there are different unit processes in treatment. So water treatment processes will be covered, then distribution system and drinking water treatment.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes,
can you start your camera?
yes, no issue. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now you can continue.
So, so first let us see what are the Indian standards for water quality. So these, it may be raw water or treated water is analyzed by testing their physical, chemical and biological characteristics. Okay, so these are we all known to these characteristics. What are the physical characteristics? What are the chemical characteristics? And what are the biological or bacteriological characteristics? Okay, so in physical characteristics, we have color, then taste, odor. These are some physical characteristics. Okay. So here the range is given. What should be the limit of these physical, chemical or biological characteristics? So this turbidity, what is this turbidity? If a large amount of suspended solids are present in the water, then it will appear uh, turbid, that means it will be turbid water. It will appear as turbid water. So this turbidity depends upon the fineness and concentration of particles present in the water. So this turbidity, initially it was determined by Jackson turbidity unit. Now it is determined by nephelometric turbidity unit. Okay, so the unit is NTU and its range is from 1 to 5. 1 is agreeable. If 1 is not possible, we can go up to 5. Okay. Then second is the color. Color should be it should be a clear water, agreeable color, that we know that type of water is agreeable, clear water. Then taste and odor. The odor depends on the contact of a stimulating substance with the appropriate human receptor cell. So the most organic and inorganic chemicals which are originating from municipal or industrial waste, these contribute to the taste and odor of the water. So these taste and odor can be expressed in terms of its threshold value. Okay. So it is again, it should be agreeable. There should not be any odor in the water, and it has a taste which is a normal taste, which is drinkable taste. Okay. Then next is the temperature. Temperature, the ideal temperature for water, drinking water, is 5 to 12 degrees centigrade. Okay. Above 25 degree, water is not recommended for the drinking purpose. So it should be in between 5 to 12 degrees centigrade. Then these are some physical characteristics. Now we'll go for chemical characteristics. What is pH? Which is a very common term, pH. So this pH value denotes the acidity or alkalinity condition of the water, and it is expressed on a scale which is ranging from 0 to 14. So it is the common logarithm of reciprocal of hydrogen ion concentration. Clear? And the recommended pH range for treated drinking water is 6.5 to 8.5. Okay. Then we have sorry, alkalinity. Alkalinity, it is a measure of its capacity to neutralize acids. It is expressed in milligram per liter in terms of calcium carbonate. Okay. So there are various forms of alkalinity: hydroxide alkalinity, carbonate alkalinity, hydroxide plus carbonate alkalinity, carbonate plus bicarbonate alkalinity, bicarbonate alkalinity. These are useful mainly in water softening. Okay. If there is hard water, then for softening water, this alkalinity parameter is required. So, or this alkalinity is again important parameter in evaluating the optimum coagulant dose. We actually use coagulant for the treatment of water. So this alkalinity is important parameter in evaluating the optimum coagulant dose. Its range is given, it is 200 to 600. Clear? Maximum is the 600. Here acidity is missing. Acidity of water is caused by the presence of uncombined carbon dioxide, minerals, and salts of strong acids or weak bases. It is again expressed in terms of mg per liter. Okay, and this acidity is nothing but it is the representation of carbon dioxide or carbonic acids, because this carbon dioxide causes the corrosion in a public water supply system. Okay, so we must know the uh, quantity of carbon dioxide. So for that we must calculate the acidity. Okay, then next term is the hardness. Its range is from 200 to 600. What is this hardness? If the water consumes excessive soap to produce leather, so it is said to be hard water. So hardness is caused by divalent metallic cations. So these cations are calcium, magnesium, ferrous or manganese ions. The major anions associated with these cations are sulfates, carbonates, then bicarbonates, chlorides, and nitrates. So the total hardness of water is defined as the sum of calcium and magnesium concentrations, and both expressed as calcium carbonate, and it is in mg per liter. So total hardness of water is defined as the sum of calcium and magnesium concentration. Clear? And it is expressed as calcium carbonate in mg per liter. So there are two types of hardness: temporary or carbonate hydrate hardness, and permanent or non-carbonate hardness. So the temporary hardness is one in which a bicarbonate or carbonate ion can be precipitated by prolonged boiling, and the non-carbonate ions cannot be precipitated or removed by boiling. Hence, these are called as permanent hardness. Okay. So the its again range is same as alkalinity, 200 to 600. Then we have chlorides. What is this chloride? Chlorides may be present in combination with one or more cations of calcium, magnesium, iron, and sodium. Okay. So this chloride of these minerals are present in water because of their high solubility in water. So each human being consumes about 6 to 8 grams of sodium chloride per day. 6 to 8 grams of sodium chloride per day, a part of which is discharged through urine or and night soil, and the excess presence of chloride in water indicates the sewage pollution. Okay, so its range is from 250 to 1000. Then we have sulfates. The sulfates occur in water due to leaching from sulfate mineral and oxidation of sulfides. The sulfates are again associated with calcium, magnesium, and sodium ions. If the sulfates are present in the water, it causes the scale formation in the boilers. So boilers are available in the industries. So if it contains sulfate, then the scale formation in the boiler occurs. Okay. These sulfates also causes odor and corrosion problems under the aerobic condition if it comes in contact with the oxygen. Okay. So its value ranges from 200 to 400. Then next one is the iron. Iron is nothing but the ferric oxide. When it comes in contact with water, it dissolves to form ferrous bicarbonate, and this ferrous bicarbonate is oxidized into ferric hydroxide, which is a precipitate. Under anaerobic condition, this ferric ion is reduced to soluble ferrous iron, and this iron can impart bad taste to the water. Even it causes decolorization in clothes, then incrustation in water mains. Okay, so these are the effects of iron present in the water. So IS value for drinking water is 0.3. It should be 0.3 or less. Above that, it is not allowed. Okay. Then we have total dissolved solids. So, total solid means it is the sum of foreign matter present in the water. So total solid is the matter that remains as residue after evaporation of the sample or drying at a defined temperature. Okay. So this total solid consists of volatile, organic solids and non-volatile, means inorganic or fixed solids. Then these solids are divided into suspended and dissolved solids. So solids that can be settled by gravity are settleable solid. Other are non-settleable. Okay. So its range is from 500 to 3000 milligram per liter. Mg per liter. Every unit is mg per liter. Then we have nitrates. So nitrates are due to the fertilizer, leaching of fertilizer. So nitrate in surface water occur by leaching of fertilizers from the soil during the surface runoff. So presence of high concentration of nitrates is an indication of pollution. Nowadays, the farmers use this nitrate as fertilizer. So there is too much groundwater pollution. Okay. So there is high concentration of nitrate in groundwater indicates the pollution. Okay. So the IS value of this nitrate is 45 mg per liter. If this concentration of nitrate increases 45 mg per liter, it causes a disease which is known as methemoglobinemia. Methemoglobinemia. It is sort of pneumonia. So these are, there are variety of chemicals mentioned in the IS code, but I have taken some important chemicals which is to be calculated. Then third is the bacterial or biological characteristics. So here it is known as bacterial bacteriological characteristics. So bacterial examination of water is very important, since it indicates the degree of pollution. So water polluted by sewage contain one or more species of disease producing pathogenic bacteria. So the pathogenic organisms cause waterborne diseases, and uh, many non-pathogenic bacteria such as E. coli, which is a member of coliform group, also live in the intestinal tract of the human being. Okay, so the coliform itself is not a harmful, but it has more resistance to as adverse condition that any other group. So if it is ensured to minimize the number of coliforms, then the harmful species will be very less. So the coliform group serves as a indicator of contamination of water due to sewage and the presence of pathogens. Okay, so there is standard plate count test, then most probable number test, and membrane filter test. So what is the standard plate count test? So in this test, the bacteria are made to grow as colonies. A known volume of sample into a solidified nutrient medium is poured in a petri dish. There is a petri dish, and these bacteria are made to grow in a colonies into a known volume of sample. The known volume of sample is poured in a petri dish, and it is kept in the incubator at 35 degree for a specified period, that means 24 hours, and the colonies of bacteria are counted. So this colony is represented as bacterial density. So the bacterial density is expressed as number of colonies per 100 ml of water. So these are calculated, and there should not be any colony present in the water. So here it is no. Probable number is no. So characteristics, bacteriological characteristics or biological characteristics should be 0. Then only it is a clear water. Is it clear? It is again, this most probable number is again a number which represents the bacterial density. Okay, so this is about the water, Indian standards of water quality. Now we will move towards the water quality index. What is this water quality index? It is just defined as a satisfactory or unsatisfactory. It is single word definition. When we drink water, how will you feel? Satisfactory or unsatisfactory? So that gives a water quality index. So this water quality index depend are considered on the 4 parameters, that is dissolved oxygen, biological oxygen demand, fecal coliform, and total coliform counts. Even a single parameter from these 4 parameters exceeding the criteria values will be considered as unsatisfactory. Okay. So based on the measured ambient concentrations and corresponding criteria. First, the dissolved oxygen BOD, then DO, then fecal coliform, total coliform. These are measured. What is their concentration and compared with the criteria of the IS code. And then if it is found okay, then the water quality will be defined as satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So these major 4 character parameters are considered for the water quality index. Now we'll move towards the water treatment. Why it is necessary? So this is just a small flow chart. Water treatment. First, the water is collected or taken from the intake. What is intake? It may be source, it may be reservoir, it may be river, it may be pond. So water is collected from the source through the intake structure. So there is one intake structure, intake well is constructed. From that well the water is collected. Through the pump house it is conveyed to the water treatment plant. So there are different unit processes in water treatment plants such as aeration, sedimentation, flocculation, then filtration, disinfection. These are different unit processes in the treatment plant. So after treating, the clear water or pure water is then sent to the or passed to the elevated reservoir, ESR water tanks. From these water tanks, the water is then distributed to the colonies or township or villages or a city. Okay. So from that city, after using this treated water, we generate the wastewater, which is known as domestic wastewater. Then this wastewater is again collected through the sewer or drains and then is again treated. So there is effluent treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant or sewage treatment plant. Okay. So again this wastewater which is collected from a township or a city is collected and treated, and then treated water is then sent or flowed to the river or any water body. Since this is treated but it has some impurities, so again when we take the water from the river we have to treat that product. So these are interconnected treatments, water and wastewater treatments. Okay. Therefore it is a very much required to treat the water. So let us see why it is needed. So it is needed to kill all pathogenic germs which are harmful to human health. Then it is required to remove the unpleasant and objectionable taste and odors from the water. Then to remove dissolved gases or color of water. Then to make water fit for domestic, industrial and commercial uses, and to remove the microorganism and colloidal matters. So these are some objectives for the treatment of water. For different uh, parameter, different unit process is required. Okay, so let us see what are the different unit processes and what is removed from that unit treatment plant. Okay, so first unit is aeration, or we can use chemicals for removal of odor and taste, color. So aeration or chemicals are used for removal of color, odor and taste. Then are you listening to me? Is there any problem?
Yes, ma'am.
Poonam, Ratan, is it okay? Voice is
Yes, ma'am.
clear?
Okay.
Okay. And every time slide is changing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these aeration or chemicals are used for removal of color, odor and taste. Okay. Then next is the screening. Actually, screening is the first part of the water treatment plant. It is used to remove the floating matter. So there are some floating matter, plastic, then some dead bodies are there in the water. So these are removed by using screening. Then chemical methods are used to remove the iron and manganese. Softening is used. Water softening is for hardness. Then suspended matter, these are removed by sedimentation. Then this sedimentation, coagulation and filtration, these are sometimes in a same unit or it may be provided differently. So sedimentation may be required or may not be required, but it should be uh, connected with coagulation and flocculation. Separate sedimentation may not be required. Okay. Then suspended matter or a part of colloidal matter, then some of the bacteria are removed by coagulation and flocculation. Then remaining colloidal dissolved matter and bacteria are removed by filtration. And next one is the disinfection. It is chlorination, just because chlorine is used commonly used as disinfectant. So the pathogenic bacteria, organic matter can be removed through this disinfection. These are some of the broad unit treatment processes used in the water treatment plant. So this is the flow of conventional water treatment plant. It may be called as a layout of a conventional water treatment plant. So first, bar screens, just we have seen bar screens are provided to remove the floating matter. There are raw water basins or automatic screens. So these two are common, same. So it is used as pre-treatment. So here any treatment is not required, only a mesh is required. Screens are required to stop the floating matter. Then we have coagulation. Coagulation means adding of the coagulant chemical in the water A commonly used chemical is the aluminum sulfate. So it is very common. Then this chemical is rapidly mixed in the water and the turbulence is created. We will see it in detail also, and the flocks are formed. So the colloidal matter, which are always in motion, these are collected or stick to the chemical, and a flock is formed. So their uh, size will become bigger, and then it will settle down. So for settling, sedimentation is required, and the sludge which is collected at the bottom of the tank is then removed from the tank by the scrappers. Scrappers are provided. These are also known as decant basins where the sludge is collected. Then from that sedimentation, water goes to the filtration. So in the filtration, bacteria are removed. Some of the uh, colloidal particles are also removed through this filtration, and after that the chlorination, last part is the disinfection, means chlorination. And this filter, after filtration, it goes to the underground sump where the chlorine is mixed and then sent to the ESR, elevated storage tanks. Okay, so this is just a layout of conventional water treatment plant. So we'll see one by one. So what is the source of water? It may be surface source or subsurface or underground source. So for surface source, we can use ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, storage reservoirs. So uh, particular for this water, the dams are constructed. So water is collected in the reservoir and that can be used for the drinking purpose. Then there are subsurface sources or underground sources, springs, then infiltration wells or tube wells. This can be used. But for a city, for a large population, storage reservoirs or rivers can be used as a source. Then just we have seen these are the very first method, first stage is the screening. So it is the removal of any floating objectives like leaves, branches of trees, fishes, weeds from the water. This is known as bar screening. Just a mesh is provided and the water is allowed to flow through this mesh. Okay. The next is the aeration. Aeration means the bringing of water in contact with the air. It is very, very important process because there should have some dissolved oxygen in the water. So aeration is required to bring the water in contact with the air. So the when we bring water in contact with the air, the turbulence is created. So this turbulence increases the aeration of a flowing stream. The contact time and ratio of water to air must be sufficient for effective removal of unwanted gas. This method is also important or effective for the bacteria control. Okay. So why we use aeration? It is for oxidation of organic matter to increase the dissolved oxygen content. It reduces the concentration of taste and odor causing substances such as hydrogen sulfide or various organic compounds. Then to oxidize iron and manganese. Then flocculation of colloids in sewage effluents to remove those compounds that may in some way interfere with or add to the cost of subsequent water treatment. For that, the aeration is required. So the diffusion of chemical substances affected by aeration, these are the volatile organic chemicals, VOCs, such as benzene, which is found in gasoline, then trichloroethylene, dichloroethylene, etc. Uh, this carbon dioxide can also be removed through this aeration. Then hydrogen sulfide. This hydrogen sulfide gives the rotten egg odor to the water. Then methane, which is flammable. Then iron, which will stain the clothes and fixtures. Then manganese gives the black stains, and various chemicals causing taste and odor. So all these are affected by the aeration process. So there are two types of aeration. One is passing water through air or passing air through water. Okay. So water can be exposed to air by spraying or by distributing it in such a way that small particles or thin sheets of water come in contact with the air. So water can also aerated by pumping large volumes of air through the water. So vice versa, both are possible, passing water through air or passing air through water. So this the aeration removes or modifies the constituents of water by using two methods. It is written scrubbing action and oxidation. Scrubbing action and oxidation. Scrubbing action means what? When the air passes through water, the turbulence is created. So the scrubbing action is caused by turbulence that results when the water and air mix together. So scrubbing action physically removes the gases. When the turbulence is created, the gases are escaped from the water. So physically, this scrubbing action removes the gases from the solution in the water and they escape into the surrounding air. So in picture you can see here carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide are being removed by scrubbing action. Circle में आपको दिख रहा होगा. In circle here you can find cloud shape carbon dioxide, triangle hydrogen sulfide, rectangle red rectangle iron, and yellow is the iron precipitate. Okay. So second picture, as the air passes through the water, the turbulence is created and the gases escape from the water. Here gases carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide are shown in circle. These are escaping from the water, remove from the water. Okay. And this scrubbing action will also remove taste and odor from the water if the problem is caused by uh, relatively volatile gases and organic compounds. Okay. Then third picture shows the oxidation. It is other process through which aeration purifies the water. So oxidation is the addition of oxygen and the removal of hydrogen or removal of electron from an element or compound. Okay, so when air is mixed with water, some impurities in the water such as iron and manganese become oxidized. Once it oxidized, these chemicals fall out of the solution and become suspended in the water. So here you can see the suspended material, yellow precipitate, iron precipitate it is. So it becomes heavy and settle down. Okay, so that is called as iron precipitate. So it is settled down in the form of sludge. So this sludge is then removed through the different processes. Okay, so this is called as oxidation. So aeration has two main actions, scrubbing action and oxidation. Okay, so the scrubbing action caused by turbulence of water and air mixing together. So through which, from this turbulence or scrubbing action, gases can be escape out from the solution of water. These are carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, even taste and odor can also be removed from through this scrubbing action. Then second is the oxidation. So iron precipitates are formed, and since it become heavy, it will settle down as a sludge. Is it clear? So these are two important processes, and this is very, very important from GATE point of view. This is basic question, fundamental question, how the aeration can remove the gases or metals from the water. Okay. Then what is the efficiency of aeration? So it depends entirely on the amount of surface contact between air and water. So this contact is controlled by the size of water droplet or air bubble. So the main goal of the aerator is to increase the surface area of the water coming in contact with the air, so that more air can react with the water. Now, there are different types of aerators. Free-fall or gravity aerator. Under gravity, there are 4 types of aerators: cascade aerator, then inclined apron aerator, slate tray aerator, gravel bed aerator. Then we have spray aerators, air diffusers, and mechanical aerators. So we'll see one by one. We'll go fast because time is very less. So first one is the cascade aerator, which is very, very common aerator, which is used in water treatment plant. So gravity aerators, the water is allowed to fall by gravity such that the large area of water is exposed to atmosphere. Okay. So the water is allowed to fall through the steps. Here steps are provided, at the top there is inlet trough and at the bottom there is outlet trough, means channel. So water is allowed to fall on the steps and a thin film of water is laid on that step so that the most of the surface area come in contact with the air. Okay, so this is very simplest free fall aerator. It can be constructed of what, concrete or metal, and its height is 1 to 3 meter, and it has capacity to reduce 50 to 60% of CO2. These are two types of cascade aerators. On right side, there is circular cascade aerator. These are the steps provided in the steps are known as cascades. These are provided on the circular part. So inlet is at the center. From the center, water is allowed to fall on the steps, and then it is collected in the peripheral channel, outlet trough. From that, it pass to the next stage. On left hand side, there is rectangular type cascade aerator. So usually rectangular shape is used for wastewater treatment plant, and circular shape cascade is used for water treatment plant. Then we have inclined apron aerator. So this is just an inclined slab on which some aprons breaking for the breaking of the water is provided. Small just steps, inclined steps are provided. These are called as aprons. So breaking of water is due to the aprons and cause the agitation or turbulence. So agitation increases the contact of water and air. Another is the sleigh tray aerator. Sleigh tray aerator consists of superimposed wood slate trays. There are some trays, you can see here trays. These trays are water is evenly sprayed on the top of the tray, and it trickles from one tray to another. While trickling, it absorbs the air or oxygen which is provided from the bottom of the that aerator. So air is supplied at the bottom with the help of blower, and it is in upward direction. Okay, so and for the removal of this air, ventilators are provided. Then this is a gravel bed aerator. One gravel bed is provided on a rectangular cylindrical shape box. So water is sprayed at the top and it trickles down through the bed of coke or anthracite. Anthracite is nothing but the coal, and while moving down, it come in contact with the air which pass through from the downward side. So the motion of the air is upward and the water flow downward. So while flowing downward, it comes in contact with the air and the aeration takes place. Then the water is collected in the channel which is at the bottom of this gravel bed. Then we have trickling beds, just like a slate tray. We have different trays which consist of coke or stones. The water is allowed to flow through these trays or beds of cokes, and these water trickle down from one tray to another. Again here, air is passed through from downward to upward direction, and it comes in contact with the water, and hence the water is aerated. There are spray aerators. This is Fountain, we have seen fountain. Fountain is nothing but the spray aerator. So nowadays it is used in the water treatment for absorption or desorption of gases. It has small orifices or nozzles mounted on the pipes, stationary pipes. Water is allowed to flow through these nozzles and come in contact with the water. All these processes are very, very costly. Therefore, only cascade aerator is used in the for the aeration in water treatment plant. This is another diffused aerator. In this diffused aerator, air is pumped through this diffuser to generate small bubbles. Small bubbles are generated in the water, and these diffusers are porous ceramic, cloth or plastic pipes. Okay. So there are two types of diffuse aeration: fine bubble and coarse bubble. And efficiency of fine bubble aeration is 10 to 20 times greater than that of the coarse bubble. Then these are mechanical aerators. So there are shafts provided. It may be horizontal or vertical shafts are provided in the water body, and by producing a large air water interface, the transfer of oxygen from atmosphere is enhanced in this mechanical aerator. So this was about the aeration. Now we have second unit process as the settling, sedimentation tank. The settling means the solid and liquid separation. The all solid part is settled down in the tank. The solid and liquid separation process, in which suspension is separated into two phases. One is the clarified, clear supernatant water leaving the top of the sedimentation tank, that is overflow. Here you can see the rectangles having rectangular tank having water. It allowed to settle the heavy part in the bottom of the tank, and the clear water flow in the channel. In between these rectangular tanks, channels are provided. So clarified supernatant leaving the top of the sedimentation tank, that is called as overflow, and the concentrated sludge leaving the bottom of the sedimentation tank, that is called as underflow. From the underflow, the sludge is removed. So the purpose of settling is to remove coarse dispersed phase, to remove coagulated and flocculated impurities, then to remove precipitated impurities after chemical treatment. जैसे अभी हमने बताया एरेशन में जो प्रेसिपिटेट फॉर्म होता है वही प्रेसिपिटेट इधर कैरी होता है सेडिमेंटेशन में, एंड दैट इज that precipitate is settled down at the bottom of the tank. Or to sludge, to settle the sludge biomass after activated sludge process or trickling filters. It is in wastewater treatment. This is the purpose of settling. Then the sediment, suspended solid present in water having specific gravity greater than the water. Having specific gravity greater than the water tend to settle down by gravity as soon as the turbulence is retarded. Means जैसे ही water काम होता है, turbulence stop होता है, वैसे ही जो particle suspended matter है which is having specific gravity greater than water tend to settle down by gravity, and these are called, these settled particles are called as sludge. And the basin in which the flow is retarded is known as settling tank. That sedimentation tank is known as settling tank. And the detention period is the theoretical average period for which water is detained in the settling tank. Water is detained in the settling tank. That average, theoretical average time is known as detention period. Okay. So there are 4 types of settling: discrete particle settling, flocculants particles settling, then zone settling or hindered settling, and compression. So first type is discrete particle settling, in which the particles settle individually without interaction with neighboring particles. Particles settle without interaction with the neighboring particles. Individually, with its gravity, it settled down. Then flocculant particles. This flocculation causes the particles to increase in mass and settle at a faster rate. How it will increase the mass? By adding the chemicals, floc formation. Okay, by adding the chemicals which is known as coagulant. Okay, then there is hindered or zone settling. The mass of particles tends to settle as a unit, with individual particle remaining in a fixed position with respect to each other. The mass of the particles tends to settle as a unit, with individual particles remaining in fixed position. वो जो particle का position है, that will be fixed with respect to each other. That is called as zone settling or hindered settling. Then last type is the compression. So it is the concentration of particle which is so high that sedimentation can only occur through compaction of the structure. Sedimentation through compaction of the structure is known as compression. So these are 4 types of settlings. So the first type is very important. Its principle is very important. That can be asked in the GATE examination. Discrete particle settling. So in discrete particle settling, what happened? Particles settle individually without interaction with neighboring particles. So based on this principle, we can derive some equation. So here shape, size and specific gravity of the particle do not change with time, because these are individually settled due to gravity. Then settling velocity remains constant. These are the assumptions. So if a particle is suspended in water, it has 2 forces acting upon it. Initially, it has 2 forces. One is the force of gravity. Force of gravity due to which it settled down. So it is Fg into rho p multiplied by g into Vp. Okay. And second one is the buoyant force, which is quantified by Archimedes principle. Buoyant force Fb is rho g Vp. So if density of the particle differs from that of the water, then the net force exerted will be the exerted and the particle is accelerated in the direction of the force, and that net force is rho p minus rho g into Vp. So difference of these both force of gravity and buoyant force. Net force is the force of gravity minus buoyant force. Okay. and this net force is known as driving force. Once the motion has been initiated, once the motion has been initiated, the third force is created due to the friction, viscous friction, because it is in motion. So this force is known as drag force. And this drag force Fd is calculated as CD into AP into rho V square by 2, where CD is the drag coefficient and AP is the projected area of the particle. Then this acceleration occurs at a decreasing rate until a steady velocity is reached at a point where the drag force equals the driving force. When the drag force is equal to the driving force, this acceleration decreases the rate and becomes steady velocity. So this drag force is equal to driving force. So from that you can calculate velocity of the particle. V is equal to 4g into rho p minus rho into d upon 3 CD rho, where Vp is pi d cube by 6 for spherical particles, AP is the pi d square by 4. Okay, and CD is calculated by the formula. So there are different formula for laminar, transition and turbulent flow, which depends on the Reynolds number, rho Vd upon m. So this principle is very, very important for discrete particle. So according to Stokes law, the terminal settling velocity for laminar flow is rho p minus rho into gd square upon 18 mu. From this formula it is calculated, and it is known as Stokes equation by putting the value of CD from these for the laminar flow 24 by Re. This equation we get. Then for transition flow we get different equation, and from this we can calculate the velocity and CD. What is CD? What is CD? Here it is written, CD is the drag coefficient. Now there are different types of settling tanks. Long rectangular settling basin. These are hydraulically more stable, and flow control for large volumes is easier with this configuration. Will move faster. So this rectangular settling tank has 4 zones. Inlet zone, it is the region in which flow is uniformly distributed over the cross section. Then settling zone, where the settling occurs under quiescent condition, calm condition. Outlet zone, the clarified supernatant water or effluent is collected and discharged through the outlet weir. And the sludge zone, for collection of the sludge below the settling zone. So these are the 4 zones in a settling tank. There is outlet and inlet arrangement. So inlet devices are provided, outlet devices are provided. In inlet, it is designed to distribute the water equally at uniform velocity. So for uniform velocity, baffle walls are constructed across the basin, which is close to the inlet. Then for outlet devices, weirs or submerged orifices are designed to maintain velocity, which is suitable for settling in the basin, or to minimize the shortcutting. Shortcutting means, what is shortcutting? It is a situation in which part of the influent water exits the tank too quickly. अब यहाँ जो होना है एकदम स्लो मोशन में होता है, सेटल डाउन होना है पार्टिकल्स, सो इट शुड बी डिटेन, water should be detained for some period. So when water exits the tank too quickly, that is known as short circuiting, sorry. Then there is weir overflow rates. So large weir overflow rates results in excessive velocities at the outlets. Then we have circular basins. It has same functional zones as rectangular basins. Just a flow regime is different. When the flow water enters at the center, it buffeted to flow radially towards the perimeter. सेंटर से देखो आप यहाँ सेंटर से वाटर फ्लो होता है एंड it spreads over radially towards the perimeter. So the horizontal velocity of the water is continuously decreasing as the distance from the center increases. Horizontal velocity decreases as the distance from the center increases. So thus the particle path in a circular basin is a parabola as opposed to the straight line path in the long rectangular tank. Okay. The sludge removal mechanism in circular tanks are simpler and require very less maintenance. Just here sludge concentration hopper type basin is created, hopper shape is created, and sludge is collected in the sludge collector, hopper shape. Then we have colloidal coagulation. What is this coagulation? Coagulation is the adding of chemicals in the water. What are these chemicals? These are called as coagulants. Okay. So the colloidal particles are so small that their surface area in relation to mass is very large. Surface area is large, but these are very thin particles. All colloidal particles are electrically charged. If electrodes from a DC source are placed in a collider dispersion, the particles migrate towards the pole of opposite charge. Clear? So these collider particles are in constant motion because of the bombardment of the molecules of dispersion medium, and this motion is known as Brownian motion. These colloidal particles have dimensions, and these are reversible upon heating. Reversible upon heating. Okay. So just so these colloids have high surface area and have a lot of active surface for adsorption to occur. So the stability of colloids is mainly due to adsorption of ions. There are two types of colloids. Leophobic colloid, these are solvent hating. These are solvent hating. That means coagulant hating. These are irreversible upon heating. These are inorganic colloids, metal. And leophilic colloids are the solvent loving colloids. So these are reversible upon heating. These are called as organics in water. So these colloidal particles are very difficult to separate from the water because they do not settle by gravity. and these are so small that they pass through the pores of the filtration media. So to remove these colloidal particles, individual colloids must aggregate and grow in size. जब तक उसका साइज बढ़ता नहीं तब तक वो सेटल डाउन नहीं होंगे. So this aggregation of colloidal particles can be considered as involving into two separate steps. First is the transportation of the particles, transport to effect the interparticle collision, and second one is the destabilization to permit attachment when contact occurs. So the transport step is known as flocculation, whereas the coagulation is the overall process involving destabilization and the transportation. Okay. So this coagulation treatment neutralizes the negative electrical charge on particles, which destabilize the force keeping colloids apart. Clear? And these water treatment coagulants comprised of positively charged molecules that when added to the water and mixed, it accomplish this charge neutralization. Okay, so inorganic, organic, or combination of both coagulant types are typically used to treat the water for colloidal solids removal. So when inorganic coagulant is added to water containing colloidal suspension, the cationic metal ion from the coagulant neutralizes the negatively charged electric double layer of the colloid. And same is occur with the organic coagulant. Here the positive charge come from amine and attach to the molecule. So the different charge, positive and negatively charged particles come together, attract each other and form a flock. So there are different coagulants which are used in the water treatment plant. Here we have mentioned the salts of aluminum and iron are commonly used as coagulants in water and wastewater treatment. So aluminum sulfate, that is alum, is popularly used in the water treatment plant, and ferric and ferrous sulfate is commonly used for wastewater treatment plant. Okay, so these are some of the listed coagulants. Out of these, two are very common. Aluminum sulfate is for water treatment and ferric and ferrous sulfate is for wastewater. So here in figure you can see the coagulant is added, and this coagulant forms the precipitate trapping impurities and becoming in large size. Negatively charged ions are attracted by positively charged ions and form a flock. They increase in size, form a precipitate, and that precipitate trap in that precipitate impurities are trapped and settle down at the bottom. So this is the process. So here same thing is written. This is flocculation, clariflocculator. There are two chambers. Inlet is from at the center, and it water flows outward horizontally. So in inlet chamber, it is mixed with the chemical and floc is formed, and then outer part of that uh, tank is known as the settling tank, where the water is allowed to settle, a sludge is allowed to settle. Velocity become very low. This flocculation process is broadly classified into two types: perikinetic and orthokinetic. This perikinetic flocculation refers to flocculation due to Brownian motion of colloidal particles, and orthokinetic flocculation refers to the uh, contacts or collision of colloidal particles resulting from the bulk fluid motion, such as stirring. In system of stirring, the velocity of the fluid varies both spatially from point to point and from time to time. There are two types of mechanism used in flocculation: gravitational flocculation and the mechanical flocculation. For gravitational flocculation, Buffel walls, Buffel type of mixing is done, and in mechanical flocculation, revolving pedals with horizontal and vertical shafts are provided. So here, when the baffle walls are provided, then it is gravitational flocculation. When uh, stirring is done, shafts are provided, then it is called as mechanical flocculation. The next unit is the filtration. So filtration is the process of passing water through the beds of granular material. Granular material means it is sand which is supported by gravel. Okay, so gravel of different sizes, sand of different sizes is provided. So when the water is allowed to pass through the different beds of granular material, then it is known as filtration. So there are basically four processes, or it work on four mechanism. Sedimentation. This mechanism of sedimentation, just we have seen, is due to the force of gravity and the associated settling velocity of the particle, which causes it to cross the streamlines and reach the collector. Okay. Then second one is the interception. Interception of particle is common for large particles. If large enough particle follow the streamline that lies very close to the media surface, it will hit the media and will be captured. Then Brownian diffusion, it is diffusion towards the media granules, which occurs for very small particles such as viruses. Particles move randomly about within the fluid and due to the thermal gradients. And this mechanism is only important for particles with diameter less than 1 micron. Then we have inertia. Attachment by inertia occurs when larger particles move fast enough to travel off their streamlines and bump into media grains. There are different materials used in the filter bed. We have sand, then gravel. But what should be the size of sand? That should be known. So sand, it may be it either fine or coarse sand. That is known as, that sand is known as filter media. Okay, and the size of the sand is measured and expressed in terms of effective size. What is this effective size? Effective size means uh, we denote this sand by using D10, D60. These are the numbers. So D10 is defined as the size of the sieve in mm, through which the percentage of sand pass by weight. Okay, so the 10% of the sample of sand by weight will pass through that sieve. Therefore, it is known as D10. Effective size D10. Then we have D60. What is D60? It is the sieve size through which 60% of sand will pass. Okay, so the ratio of this D60 to D10 is known as uniformity coefficient. So the uniformity in size or degree of variation in sizes of particle is measured in terms of uniformity coefficient. So the size of the sand should be effective size. So D10 और D60 के बीच में होना चाहिए. This uniformity coefficient should be calculated. Then we have gravel. So layers of sand is supported by gravel, which permits the filtered water to freely move to the under drains and allows water uh, to move uniformly upward while backwashing, cleaning of filter. Then other medias are also used. Instead of sand, we can use anthracite as sulfur media. Anthracite is nothing but the anthracite, which is a coal stone that burns without smoke or flames, and it is cheaper and give high rate of filtration. This anthracite is the high compact coal which has submetallic luster, and it has highest carbon content and few impurities and high energy uh, density. So instead of sand we can use anthracite. There are different types of filters, uh, that is slow sand filter and rapid sand filter. So slow sand filter consists of fine sand supported by gravel. They capture particles near the surface of the bed, and it is cleaned by scraping away the top layer of the sand. While rapid sand filter consists of large sand grains supported by gravel and capture particles throughout the bed, and the cleaning is done by the backwashing of water. So from bottom of the filter, water is allowed to flow, and the mm, the dust or mud which is on the top of the sand, it can be lifted out through the backwashing. Then multimedia filters can also be used as a filters. So this filtration is done as sedimentation, straining. These are the processes which are used in filtration: sedimentation, straining, adsorption, and chemical and biological action. This is slow sand versus a rapid sand filter. In slow sand filter, uh, 3 to 65 size sand is used, whereas in rapid sand filter 3 to 40 size sand is used. Depth of slow sand filter is 30 to 75 centimeter in depth, and whereas in rapid center 60 to 90 centimeter deep depth is provided. Effective size ranges from 0.2 to 0.4 in slow sand filter, whereas in rapid sand filter it is 0.35 to 0.55. Similarly, uniformity coefficient for slow sand filter is 1.8 to 2.5, and for rapid sand filter it is 1.2 to 1.8. Rate of filtration is very high in rapid sand filtration, that is 3000 to 6000 liters per hour per square meter, whereas in slow sand it is 100 to 200 liters per hour per. Then flexibility, slow sand filter is not flexible, whereas rapid sand filter is flexible. Other you can read. Then why backwashing is needed? This backwashing is needed in rapid sand filter. So it is the filter is backwashed when the following conditions are met, such as head loss is so high that the filter no longer produces water at the desired rate. Head loss यदि ज़्यादा होता है, flow starts to break through the filter and turbidity in the filter effluent increases. And when the filter run reaches a given hour of operation, ऑपरेशन पीरियड एक बार खत्म होने के बाद उसका बैक वॉशिंग जरूरी है. We'll skip this. Last is the disinfection. So the filtered water may normally contain some harmful diseases producing bacteria. So these bacteria must be clean in order to make the water safe for drinking. So the process of cleaning these bacteria is known as disinfection or sterilization. So usually disinfection is done by boiling or by treatment with excess lime or by treatment with ozone, and last one is the chlorination, which is very, very important. So, and it is very common method. Chlorination is very common method. Here chlorine chemistry is given. We will not go in detail. So why this breakpoint chlorination is needed? For the chlorine dose, actual chlorine dose, these breakpoint reactions are required, and this graph is required. This one portion breakpoint reaction or chlorination require 1 to 2 hours to explain. So I'll skip this. The last part is the treatment layout or siting. So layout is the arrangement of design treatment units on a selected site, and the siting is the selection of site for treatment. These sites should be on high hillside so that the water will flow through gravity, pumping will not be required. Then when landscaping is utilized, it should reflect the character of the surrounding area. So site development should alter existing naturally stabilized site contours and drainage as little as possible. And this development site should be compatible with the existing land uses and the comprehensive development plan. So treatment hydraulics is the graphical representation of the hydraulic grade line through treatment plant. So head losses are computed in the direction of the flow using water surface, and total head available is calculated. For total head available, different head losses are calculated. These are given in the head losses. So there are head losses as influent, effluent structure in the units. Then miscellaneous or free fall surface allowances are should be added. Then there are head losses in connecting pipes, channels at entrance, exit, contraction, friction. We have studied in fluid mechanics in detail. So this is about the total water treatment plant. As the time is very less, I have given you a summary of all the processes. I could not complete it in detail. These are some of the books which I have referred, and you must refer for your GATE examination. You can note it down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Students, if you have any doubts, you can ask to ma'am. Any question?
I
Okay.
think everything is clear to all.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Your lecture is definitely beneficial for our students. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.